Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ACP podcast. Today, I am Chalky Hornstein. Actually, well, I'm always Chalky Hornstein.
Usually Chalky Hornstein. That's not actually true. Sometimes you're Chalkina, and we'll get into that on another episode.
Oh, I would love for Chalkina to guest star an episode.
Oh my god.
Today, I'm joined by Marten Dollinger, who is no longer the film section editor and is now the podcast editor. Woo!
Yay! Let's see how many times I get fired from this one.
Yes. I am also joined by books section editor Jillian Daniels.
Hi, everybody.
And last but not least, Lana, and we're not going to repeat her name a bajillion times this time.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lana.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Hi,
Thanks.
Lana.
All right, so as a nice little icebreaker for today's episode, I wanted to talk about, actually, Marten wanted to talk about questionable
I really
artists. And so as a nice, quick little intro, I wanted to just have everyone go around and say their favorite show with some sort of questionable artist behind it. Namely, someone who might not necessarily have the best PR right now, or someone who's not necessarily the best with interviews, anything along those lines. A lot of this we were talking about Woody Allen in the time coming up to this podcast, and that brought into art versus artist questions. So, Marten, why don't you go first?
Well, mine's actually one that we'll probably be talking about a bit more once we get into it. But I've loved Ender's Game since I was a kid, and I think that the Ender's Game series has really aged well. Like you get those books that are written for young adults, and it's very clear that they are. But with his series, I felt like I could really read it again at my age now, and it was still quality literature. And I didn't even know about his homophobic issue until the movie was coming out, and there was all this backlash stuff, and I kind of feel bad not being aware of it. But we'll get more into the whole series of it after everyone shares their thing. But that's fine. I'm kind of attached to Ender's Game.
Thank you, Marten. How about you, Lana?
I actually was also going to say Ender's Game. I'm very attached to science fiction and also fantasy as well. But Ender's Game is truly fantastic. I read it because I had to in school, but I basically forced my brother to read it right before all the kerfuffle with the movie and how he was massively homophobic. And then I had to sit everything down and be like, don't go to the movie. But why? The book was great. Yes, I know. I'm sorry. Don't go to the movie. Don't give him your money. That happened.
For those who don't know what's going on, was this discovered in an interview? Was this discovered?
It was
how did this
okay. What happened was this was not discovered in an interview. Orson Scott Card, as a prominent member of the Mormon Church or the Church of Latter-day Saints, he has been actively campaigning and writing editorials that are anti-gay marriage, anti-homosexual for years at this point. So, yeah, this wasn't just a one-time thing in an interview. He has a long history of talking about his sentiment toward, if you have gay feelings, you have to beat them. Because that is sin that God gave you. So, And I don't know, he's, it definitely all came up again when the movie came out, or was adapted, rather. It's been optioned for years, so technically Orson Scott Card was already paid, so.
I'm interpreting your voice impression to be extremely accurate.
It's also worth noting, though, how easily this was hidden from general public knowledge. It might have been easy enough to find, but it was very much not talked about. Nobody said anything about it until all of a sudden his name gained a lot more currency with the movie coming out. And it's not like he stopped writing books. I have a number of books from his various series that he's written in my house just because, oh wow, Orson Scott Card, what a great author. I really enjoy his work. And I had no reason to suspect anything about his ridiculously homophobic proclivities because it was simply information that wasn't readily front and center. I would have to deliberately hunt for it. I'd have to Google it, and it wouldn't even occur to me to Google something like that because nobody ever talked about it.
Before we get into that discussion, because there's a lot to throw in there, does anyone have a favorite piece of problematic art that isn't Ender's Game before we just jump into it?
Yes.
What you
Yes,
got?
I
Go
do.
for it, Jillian.
So Stephen Moffat has come to prominence recently for being the showrunner for two successful BBC shows, and they are Doctor Who and Sherlock. both these shows have flaws. I don't know what it is about them. There's some sort of energy. Stephen Moffat's writing is just it fascinates me. His plots still fascinate me. From interviews, I don't think I kind of want to hang out with him.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not want to either.
I mean, do you know a lot? Yeah, of course you know a lot of artists. Um, aren't a lot of the artists that you hang out with kind of annoying to hang out with sometimes anyway? I mean, artists can be problematic people without, generalizing all creative types. I mean, I know I'm kind of a pain to hang out with.
Oh, Martin.
The 2 minutes
I
I've met
think-
George R. R. Martin were rather pleasant.
I have met George R. R. Martin twice. He's a swearing, hilarious Santa Claus, pretty
Yes.
much. Nicest guy in the world, kills all his characters, is very chipper about it.
Well, we can't all be George R. R. Martin or Neil Gaiman or Terry Pratchett or
What a wonderful man Terry
Piers
Pratchett is.
Anthony.
Yes. Terry Pratchett got in trouble once because one of his quotes was taken out of context, so suddenly the whole Harry Potter community was under the impression that he really hated J.K. Rowling, which he didn't.
Quotes taken out of context? When does that happen?
Speaking of,
All right.
just to keep it fairly recent, in the past week there were some interview snippets that were leaked out from J.K. Rowling, who apparently, out of context, what it looked like she was saying was that she never wanted Ron and Hermione to be together as a couple.
I've seen that going around Facebook, and I hate that people care.
It's going on.
I care because I like hijacking the status to shout Hermione and then run off.
Mine.
Yeah, I saw that.
Lana,
You guys
I love
enjoy your
you.
fan fiction. Let's stick to the actual bits.
I mean, I think what I enjoy is upsetting people on Facebook for no reason, but
Oh, we could destroy a fan fiction episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'd like to go just as a small snippet. I'm gonna cheat at the question a little bit because my problematic artist that I enjoy thoroughly is actually Radiohead of all things. Just because, and for those who don't know, York is terrible at interviews. He's been numerously flagged by other celebrities for just being completely rude, and just kind of his head up his own thing. Yeah, and but the music, it's the perfect music for just getting lost in, and OK Computer was just a large portion of my life. Anyway, total jerk, but great musician.
I don't know. It took me a while to get into his music, but the band is phenomenal. Beautiful, beautiful work. And Martin, you asked the question earlier if a lot of artists I know of are jerks in real life. Most of them are not, but they are all human, and they are all flawed.
Yeah, and when you put someone in a spotlight, like when you've got artists that are exceedingly successful, there's going to be that pressure and that disconnection from that humanity, So they've got the human flaws already magnified by media spotlights and all that.
Okay, yeah, this brings us to the first discussion starter that we were going to bring up today, written by our very own Jillian Daniels. Do you think consumers of entertainment can guiltlessly enjoy a piece of art such as Ender's Game while being aware of the artist's disagreeable, offensive opinions and or crimes or anything of that nature?
Here's what I've got for that. I think something that could be analogous to this and still slightly, recent, is going to go see the Ender's Game movie on, kind of the same level as going to Chick-fil-A. You guys remember the Chick-fil-A dish issue,
yeah.
right?
They support. They're run by Catholics, and they hate gay marriage and gay people.
Yeah.
among other things.
Not only it's not only their opinion on that, they actively fund anti homosexual agenda. They actively fund, pray the gay away camps and things like that. They have a movement.
They hurt people.
Orson Scott Card, I don't know where his money goes. We could probably do a bit more.
He makes donations, I think.
Yeah,
I believe.
I believe I have also read that he gives quite a percentage of his funds to, these quite violently anti-gay, homophobic, Christian-oriented organizations.
Yeah.
And here's the other question about that I have. I mean, I didn't know about his funding and where his money goes. Like supporting him as an artist versus supporting him as, someone who's funding something, or rather, not necessarily supporting him as an artist, but appreciating his art. Um, but here's the other question about that. Can you find a disagreeable message within the art? Like, is there some kind of subtle or not so subtle work into Ender's Game that throws you off that way?
Actually, as somebody who read the Ender's Game as a young person, and well, I think yes. I think so. There's an essay by John Kessel called Ender's Game, Creating the Innocent Killer. And what it talks about is how the entire plot of Ender's Game, Kid Genius goes and fights aliens, is all made to sort of like the entire story is made to create a sort of a Jesus Christ figure who you have to side with, even though, big spoiler for the book and movie, he kills an entire people. And pretty much the book is one excuse after another giving him permission to do this. So I still enjoy Ender's Game as a book, but my own answer to the question that I wrote and Chucky just posed was I think you do have to be in conversation with problematic elements of a work. If you know the creator, him or herself might be up to problematic things. Like I don't think Ender's Game itself is a harmful book. I do think you have to be aware of certain things about it before going in. Or
Well, that is definitely a thing. I'd go further than just flat out saying that he's constantly given himself permission to destroy a race, which he does, and that's part of a thing. But I think that conversation goes further than that within the series too, because I mean he tries to. I mean, he's got that egg at the end, right? Or
mm-hmm.
it's been a while since I've reread it or reread other parts of the series.
Yeah.
And that I think that speaks more to the whole horrors of war trope kind of thing, than what we're trying to get into about an artist's problematic message or a problematic artist leading into a problematic message or not. But yeah, being in constant discussion with a piece of art is definitely vital. So yeah, I don't know if
That's what
Ender's
we
Game
do
really
here.
counts as simple escapism entertainment rather than something that you actually have to constantly be reading and analyzing.
You don't have to constantly read and analyze it. I do think that if you like a book and there might be a message in it that can be harmful or something, you do have to recognize it. So if you're at a convention or if you're in a conversation with a friend and they're like, I don't like H.P. Lovecraft because sometimes he gets pretty racist with the whole cults of brown people worshiping gods from the beyond.
Sometimes?
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
Sometimes?
And if your reaction to that is, no, H.P. Lovecraft is the best, that is the
Yeah,
conversation you're not
yeah,
having.
that's definitely
I'm
problematic.
reminded of Robert E. Howard, who was a crackerjack writer in a very similar vein as to Lovecraft, and I think they corresponded. Certainly, they're from the same era of history. He was another, white Christian man, seriously problematic life, and all his work is so racist. And I first heard of him from my rabbi, who handed me this book, going, "You're gonna love this adventure story." And we actually, this is my rabbi who also loves Batman, so I've got a really awesome rabbi.
Batman.
He's great.
Come to our
And
panel.
we've sat down and had this conversation, like, yeah, Robert E. Howard has written some not okay stuff, but also this story is cool. But either way, we're still talking about actively engaging with the material versus passively enjoying it. And some people just want to tune in and shut their brains off, and other people, probably people who are similar enough to us, enjoy actively engaging with the material and critiquing it as part of our enjoyment of the media.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point too. So this guy's a horrible racist, or this guy's a horrible homophobe, or this guy's a horrible misogynist, but he writes really good books.
Yeah.
And they're fun to read. Am I a bad person for liking that book, even if I don't ascribe to that person's opinions? I don't know.
I mean, the big thing that strikes me about this question is it's not just liking it; it's about continuing to buy it. Like the thing that
Yeah.
comes to mind when I think about this question, like I think about environmental vegetarians and how they think that by buying non-organic food or by buying things that are like actively factory farming and all of that, they're contributing. They're not only contributing to like continuously support these things, but they're also like telling they're also telling people that the consumers are willing to do this and they're willing to do this, and it's a lot. There's like the big question on my mind when I read Jillian's discussion are like, how much can we separate the art from the artist to that degree? Like, are we by buying these things, are we perpetuating it, or is it just about the art?
Oh man, that. Okay, that's a good analog, and I'm actually kind of reminded of Jonah's post a while back about
Jonah?
consumerism
No Comstocks
and
in
music.
this podcast.
He was
No
supposed to be
Comstocks
here.
in this podcast. Yeah, it's sad.
He's here with us in spirit.
He's here in my sharing this thing that he did. But he wrote that article about consumerism and music and how we consume music more than we create it, and then we consume art more than we participate in creating it. So I think that this issue is more of an issue because there is a smaller population of, quote, artists, unquote, because, artists are the people we pay for it, rather than artists are the people who inspire us to also participate in that art through, appreciating it and enjoying it. It's just they make it, we buy it, the money goes to that person and they can support whatever thing that they want. So, yeah, we can enjoy these stories, but because we're not, even if whether we're engaged passively and are just enjoying the story, or engaged actively and are constantly analyzing it, we're still not necessarily part of the process of its creation and its evolution. I could be wrong. I might have just said a bunch of words that don't mean anything. Somebody jump in and save me.
I just wanted to say that my problem isn't with enjoying the artist or enjoying the art by a problematic artist. It's when the art an artist makes becomes an excuse for the artist not to get in trouble.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing in every area of art. Any celebrity can get away with almost anything these days.
And that's a bad thing. We should try them as a person who has done a crime. J.D. Salinger, on record, seduced a bunch of teenage girls and took them away from their families and academic careers, and then dumped them out on the street when he was done with them. But everyone was like,
Wahlberg,
"Oh, J.D.
blinding
Salinger,
that Vietnamese guy.
Oh, J.D. Salinger, you scamp."
I actually want to add on to that the difference between enjoying the work and giving funds to people who are still actively promoting these terrible, terrible things versus this guy is dead and in the ground. He's not doing anything bad anymore.
Yeah, we can't really do much about the Lovecraft thing. Yeah, he was a racist, but,
And it's one thing to actively critique his works, which I think everybody should absolutely do, but don't feel bad about buying his books because what's his estate? Essentially nothing, and he's dead. He's not promoting anything anymore. The harm that it's done by buying that book from your nearby bookshop is significantly less than the money that goes to actively promoting homophobia in an already homophobic society.
Oh, yes.
That's a really good point, Lana. So in your opinion, so when you, let's say someone who's alive though, like, where do you stand on, like, let's say this person's just a tremendous racist and homophobe and misogynist, but he writes really well, and like there's just like this really popular show. Do you think by watching it and promoting it, do you think that perpetuates anything? Do you think that's like, where do you stand on?
I mean, I think it definitely can, because the way that these things work is the more people tune in, the higher the ratings are, the more it persists, the more that writer will get hired, the longer the show will run. the more the
Right, yeah.
complaints will be swept under the rug. So
Yep.
there's definitely room to say, yes, taking part in media in that manner promotes the media not changing.
So we gotta, support our George R.R. Martins and support our Piers Anthonys and support our Pratchetts and all that.
Of course, but it's also not that simple, because if nobody watches it and critiques it, then also nothing will change. So
That's
Yeah.
true.
it's a very, very annoying system, because the system is geared to perpetuate itself, not to change course once it's already started.
Yeah.
Which
What
is
I will
a systemic problem that is very hard to
Uh,
address on an individual level.
Yeah. What's up, Jill?
I was just gonna say, I think you can promote a show to other people and to your friends. I do recommend Sherlock and Doctor Who to people, but I always follow it up. But there might be
There's
some
this.
sexist, misogynistic elements because Stephen Moffat has gone on record to say X, Y, and Z.
Many times.
Perpetual foot in mouth.
Like Scandal in Belgravia, what's her name?
Irene Adler.
Irene Adler?
Irene Adler. Yeah, it'd be great if she were a strong character without having to use her sexuality to be strong. And also, oh, by the way, her weakness is actually Sherlock all along.
For a
Yeah.
lesbian woman, she sure acted straight, didn't she?
Yeah.
What I have a thing to say about the Irene Adler thing. I don't have a problem with her sexuality being part of her strength. I have a problem with her becoming a damsel in distress in the final few minutes of her introductory episode.
If I could
Yeah.
verbally
That's all.
click like on your statement, I would do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not so much the sexuality being a problem. It's that I do not feel that Moffat had the ability to write her in any other way. Like, I don't see Moffat being able to write a female character that is strong in any other way. Like, that's what he did to make her strong, because that's the only way.
That's
he could
the
think
mark of a poor writer.
Yeah.
They're either sexy bombshells or they're mothers who were originally sexy and gave it all up to be mothers. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, stop with the Madonna, not Madonna, or Madonna, whatever complex.
Oh, I know you're talking about the Mary Eve complex.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm still here, guys.
Yay!
Okay, so Lana made a really good point. That's actually, it's funny because I made the vegetarian analogy back a couple minutes ago, and Lana's point actually brings home to what a lot of environmental philosophers actually talk about, which is that the moment you stop buying products, like if your goal is to not support that's like a bad habit of as a consumer, then the moment you stop buying products is the moment you lose your votes. Like a lot of the meat industry interpret vegetarians as just actively against them, and they don't really care what they think because they're always going to be against them. But they care a lot about the people who are buying specifically organic products and saying like, this is where I want my market to be. This is what I will continue to pay money for.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And
Talk with our wallets.
at the risk of bringing up horribly trite but guilty pleasure TV shows, Glee came to mind just because back when it was popular and still kind of relevant and not crazy.
That happened ever?
Season 2, they had this really controversial Rocky Horror episode that just blew up the internet. What happened was, back when it was still popular, like it wasn't people who hated the show that blurbed about it. It was actual people who were fans that were shocked and disappointed that this actually happened. But much to my surprise, at least, they actually owned up to it to a certain extent, and they introduced transgender characters to the show and actually tried to address the opinions of the other cast members who, previously were saying negative things, and then the show actually made progress. And I definitely think...
And in that situation, I think a lot of it came out of ignorance rather than malice. And I feel like in a lot of situations it might come out of ignorance rather than malice, and sometimes they just seem like the same thing, and it's a situation like that. It was demanded that...
The road to hell is paved with
good intentions. Your good intentions matter from the inside, but from the point of view of the person who's being hurt.
In those situations, I think that it's good of the show to recognize that they messed up and take responsibility for that mistake and try to fix it. Like, the second step, I think, is the more important thing. Like, all right, so I messed up and I said this thing, or I messed up and I had this wrong opinion, and now I realize it's wrong, and, asking for that forgiveness or making that change. So if, Moffat stopped being problematic or realized that he was being ridiculous and had some kind of change and wanted to do something to change his art. And I think that comes back to participating in the consumption of it and saying, no, I don't want to consume this. I'd rather see the art go in this direction. And when the artist responds to that, that is potentially more effective than saying, okay, we're just not going to watch this show because these people think these ways.
But the thing
Agreed.
is, that puts the onus on the artist, and sometimes the
yeah.
artist will own up and be like, I'm going to learn from this. Sometimes...
Well, yeah, a lot of the
she
time
won't.
they're not going to, because they're the ones getting paid rather than doing the paying, and they've got the money and the power and all that.
I definitely do think that how people respond to being called out says a lot about what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. Certainly, I think this is where intent does matter. I realize I'm only speaking for myself in this, but if your intent was not to mess up, and then you messed up, and then you apologize, and we see you trying to not mess up in the future, I'm much more likely to still support you and, speak up for you and be like, no, they're really trying, you can tell they're trying, there's evidence that they're trying, as opposed to Moffat, who just goes, I'm the best, worship me, look at my explosion.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Oh,
Great.
Moffat, you make me so mad. I could fire you if you were on my staff. But I can't. So
Yeah.
I'll just take it out on Martin instead. Martin, you're fired.
I just got this job.
Okay,
Fired.
so we're almost out of time. Does anyone have any last-minute quick statements before we wrap up?
I want to say about Sherlock that I was really drawn in until I noticed some problems, and I realize what drew me in is that well, first of all, I like puzzles, and second of all, I'm a sucker for bromance. And really, my appreciation of Sherlock is just, it comes out of my missing living with Jonah.
aww.
Aww. Jonah, if you're listening to this, move in with Martin.
Come back.
It's totally not weird that we're grown adults now and we should still live together.
Hey, it's the new world. We can't afford to not live with 4 other people.
It's true.
Oh, now I'm sad.
And I'm poor.
Any other final thoughts?
On a positive note, we have talked about writers who we find less problematic, so it's not like there's, everybody sucks.
Yeah,
Blur, blur,
we,
blur,
don't,
blur.
we have them. Yeah.
No, there are some people in this world who do not suck.
At least not all the time.
Things are not black and white. Sometimes an artist will say bad things. That doesn't make them a bad person. Sometimes an artist is a bad person, but that doesn't mean their art is terrible. And you should go forward with as much information as possible, and you, as the viewer, should make your own decisions when consuming art you like.
Well said, Jillian.
I am upvoting that statement.
Upvoting, liking, internet.
Downvote Martin.
Oh,
Oh, but he wasn't particularly terrible this podcast. Why are you downvoting him?
particularly, that's.
No. Martin was not as bad this time. In fact, I would go as far as to say Martin did not suck.
Oh, high praise.
Thanks,
High praise.
Chalky.
Those who know our staff writer Alex a little bit better in person, he has a habit of, when he really likes something, he'll just say, "Oh, that doesn't suck," and then I don't know. I just got the habit from him. But anyway, we should probably wrap up because.
Can I interject a TV show that I think is pretty cool that has only messed up, as far as I can tell, maybe one time?
All right,
Go for
plug it.
Sleepy
Last
Hollow.
one.
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy
All right,
Hollow.
guys.
They
Watch
Sleepy Hollow messed up big time when it came to Native American culture. They just went really ridiculous. But for the rest of the episodes I've seen, I haven't seen them particularly mess up. And I'm waiting to see what happens next because I'm also very excited about it. And I just really like the diversity that's there. So.
Okay, now we absolutely have to go.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Once again, I'm Chalky,
I'm Martin.
I'm Lana.
I'm Jillian.
and we are the ACP. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.